voice. It is related to A, I picked up a cold on some airplane this week, and also B, I've been talking straight since last Sunday, including I just gave 3 shiurim in Dallas over Shabbat. So, if you can't hear me, then, like, I hear my voice, and I'm like, wow, you are really not projecting. But at least it's still here, so that's good, and it only has to last through tomorrow. And then, you know, I could be totally hoarse, and it'll be fine. What we're going to do right now is a little weird for a Sunday. And that is that we're going to talk about Kabbalat Shabbat. It's a little strange to start off the week like this. But what I want to do is really give an intro to Kabbalat Shabbat in general, like where it comes from, how it got to where we are today. And then we are going to take apart together, meaning I'm going to make you guys actually take apart, one of the chapters of Tehillim that's part of Kabbalat Shabbat. Okay, so raise your hand if you could tell me when Kabbalat Shabbat, where it got started from. Yeah?
15th to 16th century, it was the Kabbalah, which happened after this. It happened after the Spanish expulsion, not right after.
Right.
Were in Israel, Kabbalah group, and it came from there.
That's what everybody wants to say. Everybody wants to say that. Everybody wants to say it's Israel, it's Sfat, it's the Kabbalists, it's the Ari. So I'm going to start us off with one line, actually 2 lines from the Gemara, and then you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's weird. Okay, so there's a Gemara in Shabbat on Kuf Yud Tet, and it starts off like this. Rabbi Chanina would wrap himself, you don't have this on your Torah sheet, Rabbi Chanina would wrap himself in his cloak, and he would stand on Erev Shabbat and say, come and we will go out to greet the Shabbat queen. Okay? And Rabbi Yanai put on his clothes on Erev Shabbat and said, enter, O bride, enter, O bride. Okay? So you already see there's really 2 streams of thought when it comes to bringing Shabbat in. You have the opinion of Rabbi Chanina, who wants to bring people, right, to go out and greet the Shabbat queen. And you have Rabbi Yanai, who, you know, also puts on his cloak and he's ready and he's like, come on in everybody, right? Come on in bride, we're ready for you, you can come in. And the truth is that I've been fascinated with royalty for a very long time. Raise your hand if you watch The Crown. Okay. So I am a very annoying person to watch TV with because I pause and then look things up online. So yeah, it's really annoying. So when I was watching Crown, I'd be like, oh, I don't know who that person is. I should look that up. I don't know anything about the coal industry. Oh, I should look that up, right? So one of the things that has always fascinated me, but not just from The Crown, but from a very young age, I don't know if you remember this, but when I turned 12, my mother decided that I should go to England for the summer. Yeah. Decided I should go to England for the summer. We had spent 3 weeks in Israel, and she said, you know what, you're going to spend the rest of the summer in England with our friends, and you're going to, you know, learn how to not be so American. That's really what happened. I was sent to drama camp in England, spent time in Wales, and it was actually like very embarrassing, because by the end of the summer, I was so non-American that anytime I heard someone speaking American English, and my new friends would say like, oh, look, that person's American. I'd be like, I don't know them. I mean, I didn't also, but I was like so embarrassed. And one of the things that we spent time doing was, and one of the things that actually fascinated me as a 12-year-old who was ditched in England by her parents, is that we went to a bar mitzvah, okay? We went to a bar mitzvah, it was in a giant marquee, and at the end of the bar mitzvah, everyone's saying, God save the Queen. Everyone stood up and literally lifted their glasses and saying, God save the Queen. I was like, what? What is happening here? Like, is the Queen coming to the bar mitzvah? Like, what? And my friends were like, what do you mean? This is what you do. At every bar and bat mitzvah, you have to sing this. And we're also going to sing the national anthem, but also we're going to sing for the queen. And I think about this Gemara, and you think about, okay, well, what's happening here? There's two different ways to kind of go out and greet Shabbat. On one side, we're literally going out to meet the queen, and that has a lot of rules, by the way. For those of you who watch The Crown, you know, right, that you don't turn away from royalty. Similar to how we leave the kotel, right, you back up, so you back up from the queen. You bow in presence, right, you don't raise your head unless you're supposed to raise your head at that time. You curtsy properly, right, when you're supposed to see the knee works. But there's a lot of rules associated with greeting royalty, right? And I think really that's Rabbi Hanina is kind of alluding to that, saying we're going to go outside. We're not going to wait for the queen to be inside. If you've ever seen any of the entourages that take place when greeting the royalty, everyone's waiting on the side of the road. You don't wait in your house for the queen to come by. You go out, or you go out to greet the queen. That's the Rabbi Hanina side of the Gemara. And Rav Yanai is viewing Shabbat not as a queen, but as a bride. And for the bride, what's ready for the bride? The house, right? So come into the house, right, O bride. This is the beginning of Kabbalat Shabbat, okay? Now, it's not the beginning of the liturgy of Kabbalat Shabbat the way we know it, but it's the beginning of this concept of we are going to do something before Shabbat that is welcoming a presence in that was not there previously. And those two things, wait a second. That's the benefit of the dogs. They tell you if somebody's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know sometimes my dog.
I have a giant tortoise. He doesn't tell you if anyone's coming.
There's a lot of false alarms too.
Oh, that's
There's
funny.
three.
Yes, really funny.
And you rouse each other up.
The combination though of Rabbi Hanina and Rabbi Yanai is really how we do Shabbat though, because Shabbat is a day of rules, but it's also a day of like a spirit and an involvement. So Kabbalat Shabbat starts there in the minds, but doesn't actually develop into something into the 9th century. Okay, the 9th century is when Bamet Malikin is instituted into davening before Shabbat. And that was the whole Kabbalat Shabbat, was Bamet Malikin. Now, I have been doing Kabbalat Shabbat for a very long time. I have been going to shul on Friday night for a very long time. I will be honest right now and tell you that almost every week I skip Bamet Malikin. Maria is not. Do you also?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do, right? Because you're like, what is this doing here? This is not the vibe. This is not. What is this place here? But that was the original Kabbalat Shabbat. You literally, what are we lighting with? And the reason we skip it is because in our minds, it's not part of Kabbalat Shabbat. It's like a weird placement of rules having to deal with how are we lighting our candles and with what are we lighting them. And we're like, this is a weird placeholder. Like, what is this doing here? But that was originally Kabbalat Shabbat in the 9th century. Okay.
Who instituted it?
I actually don't even know. I don't even know who instituted it. But that's like the first time it shows up in a liturgy is that. In the 12th century, so even before when Kabbalat Shabbat is in our brains, there are 2 chapters of Tehillim, 92 and 93, that get added into Kabbalat Shabbat. Those 2 are still included by the Ammonites, by the Teimanim, but that's it. And it didn't make it widespread. It wasn't like a widespread, like, oh, everyone, here's what we're doing right now. It was like small groups of people that added that in. In the 15th century, Rabbi Ovadia Bar Tanura writes about the fact that Jews from Muslim countries are going into Shabbat with song. They're like, oh, this is what we're doing. we always think of Kabbalat Shabbat, I don't know why, maybe you don't, but I do, think of Kabbalat Shabbat related to like Hasidim. I don't know why I think that, or like, Kabbalists out in the fields. But here they're welcoming Shabbat in, literally, with song. When we get to the 16th century, now we started adding in piyutim. Right now is when we start like adding in Kabbalat Shabbat the way we know it, and it wasn't just what you say, but also what you wore. Okay, so you would put on your white clothing, which is reminiscent of the Gemara, right? But you would put on your white clothing, and you would like have your Friday night outfit, which was white, and you would go out and you would greet Shabbat with piyutim, and this was like very, normal the way it was done. And it was 5 prakim of Tehillim at that point.
And you're saying this is in Arabic countries?
Yeah. Which makes sense then how it ended up in Israel.
Yeah.
But the one more thing that I want to add before we like really jump into it is that the Ramak, who lived in the 1500s, said that it should be said in shul. You shouldn't go out into the fields. Kabbalat Shabbat should be in a shul, like you should be, in a building to do it, which also makes you think of the Gemara. Are we going out to greet the queen? Are we waiting for the bride to come inside? But he was like, no, Kabbalat Shabbat belongs in a shul building, right? Not in a, not out in the fields. And in the 18th century, they add musical instruments. Okay, now, they add musical instruments, you're shaking your head going, huh? The way we do Kabbalat Shabbat, it's already Shabbat. Okay? I'm just like pointing that out. By the time we are saying Kabbalat Shabbat, Shabbat has already been mikabel, right? It has already been accepted. We have lit candles, it is already Shabbat. The way Kabbalat Shabbat was intended to be is that you would start Shabbat a little earlier, you would sing your piyutim, and now, right, Shabbat would start. Those of you who know my mother here know that my mother always never rushed into Shabbat. Ever. Still doesn't, but never did when she was working full time, when she was working on a Friday. She never rushed into Shabbat. She would come home from work, she would like make herself a cup of tea, and she would just sit. And then she'd be like, okay, it's time to light candles. Like there was no rushing into Shabbat. It's like, okay, here it comes. For my generation, most of us have what's called Yelling Fridays. And so like, I don't know how she pulled that off, working on Fridays, and with us as little, like, it's Yelling Fridays. That's
Did she cook?
She cooked on Thursday night.
Okay.
Because she was coming home, like, an hour before Shabbat. Like, enough time to, like, heat things up, throw things in a crock pot, and then, like, it was Shabbat, but there was no stress. It's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. Which is why, in that situation, you would welcome Shabbat with musical instruments, right? Because it wasn't Shabbat. You would sit, you would play your musical instruments, now you would put your instruments aside, and now it's Shabbat. Okay. That's kind of like getting our brains ready for what we're going to do right now, which is trying to understand why Kabbalat Shabbat gets like this very special treatment more than any other tefillah. And also Kabbalat Shabbat is not structured like regular tefillot are structured. And also, there's a lot of discussion still today about Kabbalat Shabbat, right? Are we going to sing it all together, every word? Are we going to just sing the last line of the paragraph? Whatever happens, whoever the chazan is that gets up there, they have always done it wrong. Always. Because either they got up there and they sang everything and everyone's mad and they're hungry and they want to go home, right? Or they got up there and they only sang the last line. Everyone's like, oh, this is not exciting. Why is it not singing? Right? There's like a lot of like feelings about Kabbalat Shabbat more than there are about other tefillot of Shabbat. Nobody gets upset at the chazan for mincha. It's like, okay, we're just going to do this thing. But there's like a lot of conversation about how Kabbalat Shabbat needs to be done. So what we're going to do together is that I want to take a look at one of the paragraphs of Kabbalat Shabbat, and that is the Shiru LaHashem Shir Chadash. right? I want to look at that one paragraph. And what we're going to start with at the beginning is I want you guys to take a look at it on your own or together, like b'chavruta. I want you to look at the following things. I want you to look at the language of the text, and you have it in front of you. I want you to try to figure out when this is supposed to happen, or has it happened yet? This thing that's being described in the text that you're going to see. And I want you to think about who the players are in this paragraph, right? Who is doing the singing? Okay, everyone got that? So that's three things. That's the language of the text and the words that are used over and over again. You're also looking at the when, right? Has this happened? Is this going to happen? And also, who is doing the actions? Okay, everyone got that? So you can just learn with the person next to you. That's great. Now that everybody knows each other's names.
Commands.
It's all commands, like Shiru, Havu, right? Like
Sipru.
Sipru, do this thing, right? Like it's Yishtachavu, Yismechu. It's all like do this, do this, do this. When is this? I noticed you guys discussing that. When has this happened? Is this going to happen? Is this happening?
I think we thought some things seemed like it was like the, coming of Mashiach when everyone was together and, the trees before us and all of mankind. Clearly that's not
Like,
today.
it feels like very messianic.
But then there was also like the imperative was to do it every day, right? Tremble before. No, there was something in there that was like every day you're supposed to do it. Every day we're supposed to feel like grateful.
Like grateful. So you're like, wait a second, maybe this is not Zman Mashiach. Maybe this is like a daily occurrence. And then you guys over here, I was listening to your conversation, and you were like, but what does this have to do with Shabbat? Like, what's the connection with Shabbat here? Like, and then over there, you guys, I was listening in, we're talking about like the days of creation, right? Did I hear that?
You did say that.
Okay, fine. I am an epic ear hustler. You were talking about the days of creation, and like maybe there's something that we're supposed to be appreciative of the things that were created. Past tense, we're supposed to be appreciative every day of the things that we have, but also something's happening in the future, right? There's all of these like trees dancing, right? People, feels very happy and messianic and not the bleak, dreary world that we are, currently living in.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And then there's also the judgment.
Yeah. Tell me about the judgment.
Well, it's not so many things about happening on Shabbat.
Right.
Yeah. Why? You're right. Judgment doesn't happen on Shabbos, because what's supposed to happen on Shabbos?
Resting.
Mhm. Exactly.
Shabbat Shabbaton, Yom Kippur. is
Shabbat
the
Shabbaton.
ultimate.
The ultimate day of judgment,
But it's
but
not
like
Shabbat necessarily.
exactly, but like Shabbat in general is supposed to be not just menucha in the sense of like we're supposed to be sleeping or resting, but we're supposed to be taking a break from all of the doing, right? And you're right, the judgment doesn't seem to fit
Right.
with that because judgment is,
Well, it's supposed to be singing and jubilation and.
good. So there's singing, there's jubilation. Do you notice the king? Yeah, do you notice the king in here? Imu b'goyim Hashem Malach, right?
Malach, yeah.
Yeah, there's the sense of royalty that exists in this paragraph also, of like, oh, and everyone's singing and everyone's doing this, etc. I want to focus right now on just the beginning of it, and that is the Shir Chadash part, okay? The Shiru LaHashem Shir Chadash. I kind of entitled this shiur as not just like an exploration of Kabbalat Shabbat, but also like, are we singing an old song? Is it a new song? Is it a song that hasn't happened yet? Like, what is a Shir Chadash that we're supposed to be singing? And if we're constantly singing it, then how is it new? Like, that doesn't work. If you're singing the same song over and over again, then it's not a new song anymore. One of my ridiculous projects for the year, that I took upon myself because I don't like to be bored, is I'm making Parsha playlists on Spotify. It's crowdsourced, everyone puts in songs, they are not Jewish music, but they're all songs that people think of when they think of the Parsha. And it's become like a new thing. There's like a conversation. Somebody told me from our class that she sits with a friend in shul and looks at next week's Parsha so they can participate in like, what song should we add? I was like, okay, that's a little crazy. I'm not even doing that. And now, even when I've been traveling, I'm like, oh shoot, I have to do this. So Thursday I'm in the airport, and my flight was delayed to Dallas, and I was like, phew, because now I have time to make this playlist, because we need things to be new, right? We need things to be new. It gets boring after a while. So now, I want to take a look at Rashi.
Well, are we supposed to renew it so that it isn't?
So that it's new. Okay, so take a look at Rashi, and Rashi says the following: Shir Chadash, Mizmor Zeh al ha'atid, v'sofo mochiach, ki bad lishpot et ha'aretz, b'chol makom Shir Chadash al ha'atid. Says Rashi, anytime you see that phrase Shir Chadash, it's talking about the future. It's like a hint to you, like it's talking about the future. And he says, and the end of this paragraph Tehillim proves my point, because ki ba lishpot et haaretz, when Hashem comes to judge the earth, that hasn't happened yet. That happens in the future. So this is obviously a Shir Chadash is going to be new because it hasn't happened yet. And it's always, every time you hear Shir Chadash, you're like, oh, ding, 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 according to Rashi. Like something new is happening and it hasn't happened yet. So according to Rashi, this paragraph of Kabbalat Shabbat and Tehillim is literally messianic, as you pointed out. It's going to happen way far in the future, and we know that from the opening, right? Meaning the second we see Shir Chadash, which is right at the beginning, we're like, oh, okay, this hasn't happened yet. Like this will happen one day when Hashem comes and judges everything, but it hasn't happened yet. Okay.
It's interesting because the Basru Miyom Liyom doesn't sound like the future.
Yes, it does not. Because Miyom Liyom is like every day, every day. Okay, good. So that's going to bring us to Ibn Ezra. And you kind of alluded to that. And he says, in a very concise way, you have the Ibn Ezra, right? Okay.
It's on the first page.
It's on the first page.
Well, it's right on the first.
Yeah, okay. Shiru LaHashem Shir Chadash, Pa'amayim, says it twice. V'hatam tamid. Oh. So what does that mean, tamid? Always. Always.
Regularly.
What? Regularly. Consistently. Yeah, so we're singing this song always. It's always a Shir Chadash. It is not talking about the future, but it's the regularity of singing this new song, says Ibn Ezra, and you know this because it's Shiru LaHashem Shir Chadash, right? That shir is twice to tell you this is happening. Correct. Shiru LaHashem Shir Chadash, Shiru LaHashem Kol Haaretz. Tells you that this isn't, it's three. This isn't always, right? We're always singing this song, which is very different than Rashi.
Yeah.
Right? Very, very different than Rashi, which is then going to bring us to Radak. And I love this Radak. Love, love, love this Radak. Okay. Shiru, says the Radak. I think this is on your, it's on the first side, right? Yomar ish la'achiv. You should turn to your brother, as in turn to a friend. Shiru LaHashem Shir Chadash, shekibetz etchem miBavel, ve'amar Chadash, klomar, shetitchadshu lo shir zulati. Okay, so what's the Radak saying? He's saying something really weird. He's saying, okay, Shiru LaHashem Shir Chadash. Say this to a friend. When is this talking about? When we were gathered up from Bavel. So according to the Radak, this has happened, but when this is being written, it's the future. Okay, pay attention to that. Meaning, when it's written For us, it's the past. For the writer, it's the future. And then he uses the word shetid chadshu, which means you make it new, right? You're renewing it. You're renewing this song. So, has it happened? What does it mean to renew a song? Like, it already happened and therefore I have to make it new? Is that the Radak telling me that I have to sing this song that is about something that already happened, but I have to make it like it's new? Like, what's happening here? That concept of like chidush, right? That you're supposed to make something innovative and exciting and the newness of it. Also, if you notice, he's also saying it in terms of like a command. You should do this, right? In the same way that you have the havu and the sipru and the also tidchadshu, right? Make this new, make this exciting, make this different, give a little oomph into it. Okay, now, I think you have the next thing, because it's still the Radak.
When did the Radak live?
I want to say 1200s. I'm not 100% sure. Slash, I thought I put it on
after
here.
Rashi.
Yeah,
And
Rashi dies in
11,
1080, I think. Yeah, what were you going to say? I see a mouth open for a sec.
Oh, sorry.
No, am I right or wrong?
You're not wrong, but I don't have anything to say.
Oh, okay, fine. I was like, I thought she was going to say something. Okay, Radak continues and he says the following, okay? Miyom liyom, which you alluded to, okay? Ratzah lomar, tamid b'chol yom. V'ta'am basru, zeh lezeh. Af al pi shekulam yad'u ke'achad hayeshu'a mikol makom, yes sipur Yeshua chaviva be'ineihem b'chol yom v'yom. Okay, so comes the Radak and he says the following. What does it mean to tell the story, basru, to tell it to each other? Even though everyone knows the story, and they know the story of the salvation, the story should be so precious to you, right? Chaviva be'inechem, b'chol yom, vayom, every day, ki ilu nihayta az, as if it had just happened, right? So the story should be so amazing to you, even though, right, everyone knows the story. Ki ha-bisorah hi chidush ha-sipor. You're like, V'hu arev al adam, b'yom sham'o, v'achar kach holechu mitma'et aravot hahu, v'amar ki b'chol yom v'yom, erev ha-sipor ha-yeshua, ki ilu oto hayom hu yom ha-bisorah. The story is supposed to be told in such a way that it's like it just happened. It's new every day. So a real storyteller, by the way, a real storyteller can tell the same story again and again, and it's like it just happened, right? I met a friend for coffee on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday morning in Baltimore. And I haven't seen her, I don't know, 15 years at least. And she starts telling me a story, okay? She's the dean of Gratz College, okay? She tells me a story. She's like, I have to tell you a story that I always tell when I'm teaching a class about telling a story. I said, oh, really? Tell me the story. She's like, it's about your brother. I'm like, my brother? That's a weird story to tell. She's like, remember when we were 18 and we were in Israel for the year and we went to that concert and we had to get back to the van, to the Hasa'a, we had to get back to the van, but we were on the side of a cliff and we were walking through a ditch and your brother almost fell and I yanked him up. And I saved him because he would have like fallen and broken a leg. And I looked at her and I was like, I have zero recollection of this story. I remember going to the concert. I remember my brother came to visit me in my year in Israel, / my parents shipped him over to me to take care of for a week of Sukkot. and I don't remember this at all. She's like, what? I'm like, how many times have you told this story? She's like, oh, a million times. I tell this story all the time, every time. I was like, I don't even know if this story happens. She's like, you were there. I'm like, I feel like I would remember if this story happened. She said, yeah, and I changed the story. Pay attention. She doesn't even know that I was going to then use her story, my story in the shir, but she opens her mouth. I was like, oh, there it is, it's the Radak. She said, and I changed the story depending on the audience. So I was like, what do you mean? She said, when I tell this story to a Beis Yaakov audience, I pretend that it was like your little brother. I said, he's my little brother. She's like, no, I pretend he was like a kid, like
3-year-old.
not 15.
Right.
And I was like, oh, sure you do. She's like, but when I tell the story to like college students, so I tell it as he was, 5'10" and an adult male, and I'm, this my friend tells me, 4'10", and it was the adrenaline that I like yanked him out of the ditch. I'm like, still don't know what you're talking about. The truth is, when I checked with my brother today, I should have asked him if he remembers if this story happened, but I did not. He probably doesn't. He probably doesn't remember this story as much as she remembers the story, because she has been telling this story and changing this story as many times as she has told the story. Now what the Radak is saying is something so amazing here, because he's saying, we all know the story of the Yeshua. Everybody knows the story of how we were, brought back to Eretz Yisrael from Bavel. That's the story. But if you tell the story all the time, and then that story becomes so precious to you, like it just happened, and the story becomes like hyped. You're like, oh, it's a great story. That's an exciting story. And when you're telling it, b'chol yom vayom, every day you're telling this story, and the more times you tell the story, it's ki'ilu oto hayom hu yom ha'besorah. It's as if it's just happening. Now, the power of a story is tremendous, because not just because my friend tells a story about my brother that I think she makes up, because stories serve as therapy for people, right? We have seen that throughout this war. There's been a lot of storytelling, right? So people who were saved on October 7th tell their stories. It's not just to get the story out there, it's the processing that happens as you tell the story. The hostages are coming out and they are telling stories that could make you crawl. Why are they telling the story? It's not just, and then I was saved, right? But it's the processing that happens as you tell this story, and you work through, right, the details of telling the story, and then it becomes this Shir Chadash. You appreciate the newness of a story that is being told over and over again.
So it's kind of, it's Shir Chadash because you tell the story, and every time it's new because you're processing.
Because you're processing.
And you're at the next step.
Yes.
Every time you say.
And you're in a different place every time you tell the story. Now, Shir Chadash, the concept of it doesn't just come up here, right? It comes up all throughout liturgy, that we forget that it's not just like, oh, here in Kabbalat Shabbat. Someone give me an example. I'll raise my glass, that will give you a hint.
What was that question?
Shir Chadash comes up in other parts. Pesach. Good, on Pesach Seder. Right? On the second cup. Here's what we say. V'nodeh lecha Shir Chadash al ge'ulotenu v'al pedut nafshenu. Think about those words, because it's an amazing thing. We are showing gratitude. What are we showing gratitude for? This Shir Chadash, okay? And it's al ge'ulotenu, because we have been redeemed, but also al pedut nafshenu, right? The salvation of our souls. It's an incredible thing. You don't even think about that. Like, forget not thinking about, like, we say this every single week, but we don't think about the words of it. Like, we know the Haggadah. Like, We know it. Like, I can, start you off on a line and everyone will just finish the line of the Haggadah with us because we've told that story over and over again. It's not just that line of Shir Chadash takes place in the Haggadah, but that the entire telling of the story of Pesach is that. Like, we get there every year at the same point and we tell a story that we told last year, right? And like, okay, like, I know the story. No, what part of the story is that you're retelling it and you're retelling it in a new way and you're like getting into it. One of my cousins used to, not anymore, but she was an actress and she would bring in costumes for Seder. She would have like the proper, chairs, the recliner chairs for everyone at the table, but everyone would get costumes and a role. Because it's role playing, you're telling the story as if. We did a couple of years ago, we gave everybody a passport, literally a passport at the Seder. My mom made passport covers for everyone at the Seder. And inside you got an identity. Okay, so, and they were not like your usual, like Moshe, Miriam, no. You were like the keeper of the lions in Paro's palace. You were, a little kid who had to bring water. You, like random identities of people in Egypt. And then you were called upon during the Seder to do your part. And like say how you felt at that moment of Yetziat Mitzrayim. It was a crazy thing, but what it did was take this story that is so old and we know it. And not only do we know it because we say it every year, but we say it all the time. Like every day in Shema, we talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim, like such an old story. But we renew it. Shetit Chadshu, we make it new. Someone tell me another place that Shir Chadash comes up. Also on Shabbos, but not everybody says it. Everyone's like, shoot. The hint is, it's a Zemar.
We sing Nomar L'Shama Shir Chadash.
Okay, we do say that. But also in Sor Mishalel, Yibanei HaMikdash, Ir Tzion Tzmalei, V'sham Nashir Shir Chadash. You're like, oh, we do say that. Right? And a lot of people do sing Sor Mishalel of Al Smirot. It's like a song that's sung. Also because it's supposed to be divided up just like Birkat HaMazon. So people sing it into Birkat HaMazon. But there it is. Again, V'sham Nashir Shir Chadash. And then what is it talking about? Yibanei HaMikdash. Ir Tzion Tzmalei. V'sham Nashir Shir Chadash. Then we're going to sing that new song. So it's an amazing thing when you think about it, that like, we have this concept of the Shir Chadash. It's associated, and you guys were mentioning this, with a sense of gratitude, right? And you didn't even think in your heads then about the Nodek connection with Shir Chadash, but there is a sense of, and you saw it in this chapter, there's a sense of the gratitude that comes with the singing of this new song, that every time you're singing it, you are grateful for something else, right? Something else is happening. Now, ultimately, this is what Kabbalat Shabbat is supposed to look like, right? In other words, you're supposed to think about these things. You come into Shabbat, you ask, like, well, what does this paragraph have to do with Shabbat? Like, maybe in the future, maybe it's singing. The amazing thing about Shabbat that's supposed to happen is because it's a Yom Menucha, so you could take a step back and appreciate what you have because you finally stopped for a second. Right? It's hard to see what you have when you're in the middle of something, right? When you're, when you're doing that thing and you're stopping, you're like, oh, I can appreciate what I have, what I've been into, what I've processed, what I've gone through. I'm singing the song. The other part that I think is so important, and with this thought I'm going to end, is that in this telling of the story, it's not enough to just sing the Shir Chadash. You have to sapru, you have to basru. have to tell it to other people that makes it the new song. And the truth is, my friend Leslie is right. The more times you tell the story, the newer the story becomes, but also the song is not new if you're not telling it to other people. Because when you tell it to other people, what happens is they add something back into the newness. Right? So you tell a story, and I mean, I can tell you that I gave the shir yesterday in Dallas, okay, in between Mincha and Maariv. And there's these two guys in the back of the shul, and I taught them when they were in high school. And I see them like cheppering with each other, and I called them out. I did. I was like, AJ and Gabi, you guys are telling each other a story right now, in the middle of my shir. I said, but what's amazing is that you have not uttered a word. You're making eye contact with each other. You're laughing about a story that you guys have probably told each other over and over again. You don't even have to tell the story anymore. You're just like looking at each other and you're laughing about it. And afterwards they came over and they were like, you don't even know. We were telling each other a story without saying any words of how terrible we were as students to your husband. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they tell me the story about like something that they did, which was really terrible. And I checked with my husband this morning and I was like, do you remember this? They like put a garbage can on the door so that when you open the door to the classroom, and they said to me, they were like, and we just wanted the garbage to come out, but really the whole garbage can fell on him. We felt so bad. They're like, and we still feel bad. Can you apologize for us? So I said to my husband, I'm like, do you remember this? And he's like, no. I was like, well, they've been carrying this story for a very long time, so I hope you forgive them. But that's the benefit of the story. So my bracha to all of us, even though it's a Sunday and it's weird to talk about Kabbalat Shabbat, is that we tell the story the whole week. So that when we get to Shabbat, we get to appreciate and pause for our Shir Chadash. And it held out mostly.
Well, you know, it's like a long-running Broadway show. Every time they put on the show, so the audience changes, and sometimes people keep going back. But each time you put on the show, you go to see that show, it's the first time you're seeing it, it's the first time, so they have to keep it fresh, even if it runs for years, and they have performances every day.
It has to
sometimes
change.
twice a day.
Yeah.
It's funny, because I gave this shir for the first time yesterday. Today's the second time. So it's now Shir Chadash. And because like I lived there for a while as an adult, I like called people out. So there was like a guy in the audience who is a storyteller that he just tells the same story over and over again. And I was staying with him for Shabbat. And I had heard the same story more than once over Shabbat. And I called him out and the place lost it. I was like Mike, for example. It was funny. Thank you.
Thank you.